I turn around. It's black hair in my face. It wants me to turn around. Of course it does. If I turn around, I'll die.
Music is a brilliant medium. It can be used to add to an already beautiful and joyous scene, to add a further sadness to something already heart-wrenching. And, of course, it's been used endlessly in horror media, games, and movies of all kinds to add suspense, unnerve, and to, of course, scare the viewer. But there's something very, very unnerving about hearing something so out of place, and to put it bluntly, scary inside of a game meant for a child. But what about when there's no real image to put to a song, to a sound? When said audio is left to fester in your mind, to let loose your most wild and horrid thoughts, to run wild with the possibilities and potential meanings of such a thing. Well, that's exactly what today's video topic delves into, and then some. Today's video topic is quite unique. A friend of mine recommended it to me ages ago, and I finally decided to actually look at it. Now, my name is Dregobob. Welcome to my channel. Before we get into the meat of today's topic, I'll just say I'm coming off of a cold, so I may sound a bit odd. I'd also like to ask if you could find it in your heart to subscribe and like the video. Comment if you can too. I'll keep it short, and just say it would mean the world to me. But with that, I'd like to talk a little more about audio. I'll say I'm not the most articulated when it comes to speaking about said things, but even if you don't think it is, music, sound effects, and everything audio related plays a massive part in any experience. Some games that come to mind are FNAF with its ambience, Undertale and Deltarune with its godly soundtracks, and this, of course, goes for pretty much everything. There's every analog horror ever, ARG, and digital horror, which is just me stating the obvious. Sound in each of these pieces of media play a different role. In FNAF, eerie audio can serve multiple purposes: to alert the player to danger, and to, of course, unnerve. A simple change in music and soundscape can make everything like FNAF into, well, a joke. There's another video that explains all of this much, much better than I ever could. And at the moment, an image of said video should be on screen right now. As for scary audio, I'm sure you've at least heard an iconic Minecraft cave noise once or twice in your life. Minecraft itself isn't a scary game to begin with, but through mods and other means you can make it play the part. But I'm sure the majority of you have played Minecraft, gone into a cave and heard that once or twice. Despite Minecraft not strictly being a horror game, the subversion of a person's expectations when playing such a bright, colorful game, especially in dark, monochrome areas like caves, serve to make the player think, even if that's not the intended purpose. The first thoughts to come to mind is, what the hell was that? Where did it come from? What made it? And of course, with a game with such a rich history as Minecraft, it's bound to make anyone wonder. I could make a video all about the topic of sound in video games, and I may very well do so someday. But for the sake of your time and me keeping this video at the very least somewhat targeted at my regular audience, let's continue. Circling back to today's topic, its audio plays a massive part in its story, world building, and more. And that's namely because most of the series is just audio. Notably, it's music from the game Animal Crossing Wild World, recorded in-game and seemingly archived by its uploader Sepiatone, who I got to speak to. They also clarified a couple things I was curious about too, so I thank them for that very much. As is the norm, I ask you to give the series a watch for yourself, and to give some love to said creator. It's only because they created the series in the first place that I've been given the chance to make a video on it. So with that, let's dive into the gateway video leading to the playlist itself. It's not too meaty in terms of information, but I'll allow it to play all the same.
Hi, this is Sepiatone. I'm making an update video about the Animal Crossing Let's Play I've been doing for the past couple of months. There should be some gameplay on screen of the game I'm talking about right now. I was planning on doing a full year of gameplay, recording, editing, and uploading every single day, but I've quickly grown bored and a little bit burnt out of the entire process, and I don't think the ends are worth the means. So I've decided to not lead anybody on. I've decided to unlist all of those videos and put them in a playlist down below. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do any Let's Plays anytime in the future. I'm not really much of a Let's Player anyways. I'm probably gonna do more creative projects in the future. Something that takes a little bit more effort than just like playing Animal Crossing. Thank you for your time. This was just a quick little update. Thank you for watching.
It should go without saying, but the music heard throughout today's video is also from said playlist, and courtesy of Sepiatone themselves. Thank you again for that. One thing to note with each of these videos is that, as I said before, they are recorded in-game. Additionally, all names are fan-made, as in they have no official names stated in the files. On top of that, these audio files have never been located in the files of Animal Crossing Wild World. This all means the audio shown in the playlist was recorded and uploaded to YouTube by Sepiatone as stated in the primer video. But between the stated upload date of the primer video and the listed songs in the playlist, something is either amiss or they aren't aware of anything wrong with said unlisted videos. The latter of which I'm more than certain isn't the case. Due to the series' reliance on audio for the most part, I'll also be using spectrogram analysis and some audio editing to extract whatever I possibly can. By the sounds and looks of it, when placed into a spectrogram, 0 AM doesn't present anything notable other than a nice ambient track. The comments also don't provide anything of real note beyond a lot of our peers. I originally thought them to be related to the project itself, but that of course wasn't true. Looking at the actual game of Animal Crossing, its music and general sound design is more peppy, lively, and fun. The colors the game also presents are just as lively, and that's not even mentioning all of the memorable and adorable characters you can meet in said game. I know this because I also spent time 100% not playing Wild World on an emulator. This is all putting it very, very bluntly, but as we'll come to find, the music and audio also presented here seldom matches anything you can find in the Animal Crossing series, new and old. I suppose that's one of the things that also drew me into this series. Moving on to video 2, Abandoned House, the description states that this music plays in a villager's house when they disappear. I'm sure it goes without saying, but Animal Crossing, even in its older installments, has never had features even remotely like this. There's something about not having anything but a piece of audio to keep in mind, along with the fact said audio was recorded by another person that makes this acutely disturbing. Several questions also come to mind as well. Why did the villager leave? Why did they abandon their home? And what took them, if anything? This track is also the first instance of anything paranormal or out of the ordinary taking place, as at around 31 seconds, a whispering or whispering adjacent noise can just barely be heard in the background. Despite my best efforts, I've been unable to decipher what's being said. And by the looks of it, there are no images or dialogue in the spectrogram, which will unfortunately be a running trend in this series. The next song in the playlist is titled Game Over. Game overs, as most should know, are completely impossible in Animal Crossing. But again, looking to the sparse yet infinitely interesting text in the description, it's stated that the Game Over screen can be accessed via a rare scorpion sting event, or by being caught by the nightly visitor. This is the first time anything truly odd is mentioned by Sepiatone. At least seemingly mentioned by them. We don't receive any dates truly tied to when this audio was recorded, despite the audio having been uploaded a year prior. Well, the primer video was uploaded only a few months ago. One could argue this may have been recorded ages ago when Wild World released. Of course, without solid evidence for said idea, we can only say it's just a theory. Circling back to the topic of the nightly visitor, I can only say that it's disconcerting. Dying is not something that can happen in Animal Crossing. The fact that there's at least 2 events in which it can happen, not to mention one of these occurrences being far more bizarre and extreme sounding than the other, is, again, bizarre. Speaking of bizarre, at the end of this video, we hear this bizarre series of noises. Placing it into Adobe Audition, no text or notable imagery can be found. What makes this more interesting is the fact this is, as we recall, recorded in-game. So whatever made this sound was witnessed by Sepiatone, presumably the one who recorded all of this. We can't exactly say all too much else about what we hear, but all we can do is move on to the next video, and add what we heard to our notes. This next video in the playlist is titled Waterfall Room. While not exactly notable, this video, unlike the others in the playlist, has a different thumbnail featuring KK Slider. Of course, that doesn't really matter all too much. On top of this, the description doesn't really provide anything truly notable. Note: sorry about the footsteps. While the imagery in these videos, for the most part, hasn't exactly been very important, this video marks the first time we're shown an actual in-game screenshot of any kind. As all the previous media has been game art and posters, notably going along with the video's title, we can very clearly see a waterfall in the background. Topping all of this off, at the very end of the video we can for a brief moment see some old Windows Movie Maker text reading, "How to get the waterfall dungeon. Step 1. Though, as I said, the video quickly ends as soon as this is shown. It's more than clear now that Sepiatone's copy of Animal Crossing Wild World is far different to what we in the real world have. The only thing we can do now to try and gain a greater understanding of everything we're seeing is delve even deeper into the playlist. The next song is titled Funeral. Unlike others in the playlist, it has nothing of note in the description, and it's more than obvious when this song would have been meant to play. The song overall is somber and downbeat. Unlike other songs in the playlist, it has a sort of film grain effect placed over the solitary image shown on screen. In the comments, we also get to see a rare instance of Sepiatone directly replying to someone in the comments. His reply goes to a user named Renadu30. I'll read both now.
This is odd. I do not recall any of the music, nor any of the other ones in your channel. Could you please try and record any way you can the in-game event as it unfolds while the music plays? Maybe it will trigger some memory from back in the day. If I find any screenshots or recordings, I'll be sure to upload them at this point. So far it's just been forum posts and archived OST videos.
This clarifies a couple things. For one, it's not exactly Sepiatone recording all of these. Instead, these songs are from a forum, one we can't exactly access. With this information in mind, I'm left to wonder who exactly experienced all of this. And judging by the previous things we've seen, and the potential of all of these originating from the same person on the forum, I can only imagine they may not be okay. The next video in the playlist is titled Found. It doesn't take a genius to guess that the thing they may have been found by is the nightly visitor, unless there's more than one nightmare roaming around. In the description, it's also stated that this song plays in the graveyard. This is yet another reference to a location that doesn't and shouldn't exist in Animal Crossing, so we can group that up with Waterfall Dungeon. This track, unlike the others, is also less music and more so something you might hear in a more abstract version of Outlast. The song itself even sounds like it has phases. For the first section, it's just that all too eerie audio. Later, what I can only describe as a low growling or grumbling begins to play in the background. This is then followed by an ear-piercing alarm sound. Keep in mind, this is all audio of what somebody experienced personally while recording said audio. I can only imagine what may have been on screen during said chase, and I can only imagine just as much what the graveyard may look like. As is the norm, so far the spectrogram analysis has provided nothing in the way of messages or images. The next video's title hits much harder than the others in my opinion. Final Hour in the context of this series can mean many things, but first, looking at the description, we're told that this track has
a random chance of playing when everyone disappears.
Between what we learned from Abandoned House, Game Over, and Found, it's more than likely this small piece of text confirms that not only will the nightly visitor hunt the player, but the villagers of the player's village as well. The monster we know as the nightly visitor is formless. We only know it through the low grumblings of the Found track. For a moment, if you would, I'd like for you to imagine what this thing looks like, and keep that mental image in mind. Now throw it out altogether. Looking back to the song at hand, it does indeed seem like some majorly climactic thing. The name Final Hour should only be used on something with true finality. And as I might imagine, it's likely that with the rest of the residents gone, it's only a matter of time before this thing, the nightly visitor, shows up to take you along with everyone else. But that's just a theory. A Drago theory. That was awful. I'm cutting that out of the video. I'd just like to say this is one of my favorite tracks from the entire series. It reminds me almost of the Warthog run from Halo, or I should say, it gives me that same nagging feeling of, I have to leave now or I'll die. And following the norm, there's, of course, nothing apparent to be seen via the spectrogram. That about does it for this video. The next is called Untied.
Its long gray hair briefly hovers over my neck as if to gesture. I turn around to see it bending over my head. Its breath burns my face off. I turn around. Its black hair in my face. It wants me to turn around. Of course it does. If I turn around, I'll die. I turn around. I can see its arms hugging the wall. The holes where its eyes should be are boring past my skin into my skull. Rolled with its hands on my shoulder in perfect timing. Turn around, turn around, turn around, turn around.
This video is like getting whiplash. The sudden shift from the almost angelic sounding music of Final Hour to what I can only describe as the terrifying shrieking coming from this video was jarring. This track feels almost like a more intense final stage to the track Found. This is what you hear as the nightly visitor bears down on you, as it toys with you while slowly killing you. The text in this video makes it feel like it's toying with the uploader, that it knows it's won and only seeks to terrify and scare its target, its prey. The text alone hardly paints a pretty picture. The holes where its eyes should be are boring past my skin into my skull. The fact there's nothing in the description either means this video, and probably others, were uploaded to the site by anomalous or paranormal means. Or that after hearing it, Sepiatone didn't want to bother any further than just titling and uploading it to the site. There's not anything more to gain from this video, as again, like the others, there's nothing of note inside the spectrogram. The next song does a total 180 once more. Church. If I thought Final Hour sounded angelic and holy, Church without a doubt takes the cake. Only its true name isn't simply Church. A cursory glance at the in-video name of the track reveals it's really named Midnight Ceremony. The sounds of a pipe organ or an adjacent instrument nearly drown out almost everything else in the track, but you can almost hear what seems like holy chants and some other bellowing instruments in the background. It all serves to make the place feel larger than life, as if something greater than yourself is watching you, but with the added context of its true name, Midnight Ceremony, paired with everything else that we've seen thus far, even more so the previous video, that feeling is hardly a good one. Before I trail off about this any further, glancing at the description, we actually get a bit of a longer description this time. Note: it's always too late to attend service. You can sneak in, but that's a bad idea. We now have 3 locations that shouldn't exist in Animal Crossing Wild World on the list: Church, the Waterfall Dungeon, and Graveyard, with the addition of a threat in the form of the nightly visitor. who will attack the player and take other villagers. Where to? I'm unsure. But it's near the end of this video, much like the previous track Waterfall Room, we're given a glimpse at something else entirely. It's a wiki page for a villager, one named Bell. A, to put it bluntly, rather creepy ram villager, who according to this snippet of an image is the priest of the church we shouldn't sneak into. His picture quote, a picture quote being something you get from interacting with a gifted picture of its respective villager, gives you their favorite quote, or something along those lines. I can't quite recall. But his quote says, "God is such a forgiving being. Wouldn't you agree?" The name Bell also brought a couple ideas to mind. At this point in the series, it seems we're dealing with something religion-related. Perhaps a cult or some type of demon. Maybe even something that fancies itself as a deity. The name Bel brought a couple well-known demons to mind. Beelzebub, Baal, and Belial. Beelzebub is a giant fly demon of sorts, so they wouldn't be depicted as a black ram with curved horns. Baal, while closer to Bel, is only noted as taking the form of a cat, toad, and human, from what I understand. But if any of the three I listed fit the bill the best, that's Belial. Bel, Isle, Belial. I think Belial fits the bill best for a potential demon antagonist, considering Belial is a notorious demon from ancient Jewish and Christian tradition. They're often depicted as a fallen angel or a high-ranking prince of hell. His name, rooted in Hebrew, translates to worthless or without value, symbolizing rebellion, deceit, and moral corruption. But what makes me believe in my idea further is in texts like the Bible's Book of Samuel, Belial is associated with wickedness, leading people into sin through temptation, arrogance, and lawlessness. In later occult works, such as the Lesser Key of Solomon, he's described as a cunning king of demons, commanding legions and offering gifts like social status or persuasive speech, but always with a dangerous catch, as is the norm for demons. Belial, like many demons, lead them astray, but between some popular depictions and so on, featuring him with goat or ram-like features, his cunning and finally propensity for leading people astray as Belial is heavily linked to manipulation and embodying lies and impurity. It's fitting that he's also depicted as being silver-tongued, cunning. What better way to corrupt the youth than to attack them within something so unassuming as a game meant for children? Of course, I could just be reading into the goat depiction and name too deeply, but Belial is noted as controlling legions of demons and spirits, so who's to say they didn't bring a few friends with them in the form of the nightly visitor? All of this makes you think even more. Between having to seemingly sneak into the interior of the church and the name Midnight ceremony, this track is incredibly foreboding, and only makes what has yet to come feel even more nerve-wracking and upsetting. Beyond all of that, the video doesn't provide anything notable in the spectrogram, nor anything of note within the comment section, but I feel now we do have a probable antagonist, or a seeming antagonist in the form of Bel or Belial. At the very least, this seems supernatural or demonic in nature. The next video on the playlist is titled Ascension. This song feels absolutely unhinged, almost like energy bursting out uncontrollably. Of course, with the previous track's name, we can assume that whatever ceremony or ritual was taking place was successful. The description unfortunately doesn't provide anything useful or of note. There also isn't any comments from the uploader. Turning our attention back to the track itself, it's around a third through we begin to hear a piercing, banging noise. This being recorded in-game, it's likely wherever the player is, something is trying to get in. To get them. As this continues, the Animal Crossing Wild World image begins to peel away, eventually revealing text reading, "Why is there nobody else here?" It seems that at this point, everyone is gone. Whatever ceremony took place was completed, and something is happening. I can't quite explain everything I think yet, but there's potential that these tracks are out of order, And in time, it's going to be up to us to put all the pieces together in one way or another. With Ascension out of the way, we move on to yet another tonal 180. Bankruptcy. This track is rather interesting. Instead of the high-energy, bizarre, and angelic tracks we saw and heard prior, we're back to the more simplistic yet nice ambient tracks we heard prior. In the description, this one reads,
Support your local businesses.
That's certainly something you should do, by the way. But what makes this truly notable is the shot of what appears to be the inside of Tom Nook's shop in Wild World. Only it's completely empty. And the player in a text bubble below comments, "He didn't even lock the door." It seems even Tom Nook wasn't safe from the nightly visitor, or Belle. I can really imagine how creepy it would be to open your DS or 3DS only to find your Animal Crossing town completely abandoned. Tom Nook and all. I can only imagine what a child may think after having experienced all of the horrors that came from this version of the game too. Like the previous tracks, nothing of note appears within the spectrogram, nor are there any notable comments. This video, like a few others, provides a smaller piece of the puzzle. In due time, we will have them all. The next track is titled Player Grave. This song, like a couple others on the playlist, features what I'll call the church leitmotif. This song features what feels more like a toned-down version of Midnight Ceremony. The description also reads,
Note: random chants while mourning a player's grave. He's in a better place.
What's more interesting is that second quote. He's in a better place. Paired with the context of mourning a player's grave, this becomes all the more worrying. As has been the case with a few of the last videos, the Animal Crossing box art soon fades away, revealing this image and text.
Name: David. Town: Fairway. Favorite villager: Lucky. Played for 562 days, 13 hours, 1 minute. Final words: I don't want to go to heaven. May he rest in peace.
They played for over 562 real-world days. I can't get it out of my head, but there's something so disturbing about the phrase, "I don't want to go to heaven." When you think back to all the religious imagery and more than likely demonic antagonist, it makes this all the more disturbing. As for the town's name, a fairway in entomology, or just generally, refers to a travel way, or any real passageway. When you pair this fact with the track Ascension, it makes a lot of sense. It seems that this game is a sort of package to some other plane. This plane in question is more than likely hell, or some equivalent space. Near the end of the video, David's face morphs to that of a gyroid, which is actually something that can happen in-game. But what doesn't happen is all the text changing into crucifixes. I don't have much else to say here, so let's move on to the next track. Church Prayer. This track again has the church leitmotif. Overall, it feels like a more toned down, and this time ambient version of Player Grave. Church, or I should say Midnight Ceremony. Looking down to the description, I believe we get a comment from the original person who recorded this track and posted it to this unseen forum.
Note: plays during a church service prayer. To anybody who ascended last night, can you tell us if you got anything cool out of it? Like some furniture or something?
This just goes to show that these occurrences, at least for the uploader, are normal enough for them to ask if anyone got anything cool from Ascension. And I hate to say it, but anyone who ascended likely didn't get anything good out of it. Later in the track, we again get another in-game screenshot. This time, a shot of the interior of the church. David, or a player that looks like them, can be seen sitting alongside another player or villager. I can't quite tell considering all of the other figures are featureless shadows. But we do get a line from Belle. Let us have a moment of prayer. From here, we watch as the number of players, or more than likely villagers, diminish, until there's less than a few left inside the church, David being one of the few remaining. Less notably, the video fades to white instead of black. As with the other videos, unfortunately, nothing appears in the spectrogram or comments. The next song in the playlist is titled Goodbye Note. This song is simple, yet it almost feels like the kind of thing that might play when you lose something valuable, or on a particularly grueling day with no silver lining. Going along with that is the song's name, Goodbye Note. The note in question's relation to the song is expanded upon a little more in the description, which I'll read now. Note: short loop that plays in a letter when another player quits the game. My brother quit playing the game yesterday and I got this fucked up letter sounding like he was gonna run away. When I asked him about it, he freaked out, insisting he didn't write it. I tried to press him on what happened, and he just started to break down, saying he was going to hell over and over again. The implications alone are disturbing, but this quote in the description is followed up by an actual in-game letter, which is a feature in the Animal Crossing games.
Dear James, it's time for me to go. I'm sorry I never told you, but it's going to be okay. We'll see each other soon. From Noah.
This is more than likely the note mentioned in the description. If what was said there is true, that means this note was created by something within the game. Something that perhaps wants the player to ascend, and at the same time make it appear as if they simply ran away in the real world to prevent any suspicion. Considering the heavily religious themes we've seen thus far, it's more than likely Bel or Belial is to blame. By the sounds of it, it may very well communicate directly to the player. That likely means Bel or Belial and the nightly visitor can only harm the player, and by extension, their real selves, by having them interact with the game. While at the moment, we understand the nightly visitor only seems to permanently remove villagers, it's likely the end goal is to have the player ascend. What this ascension means is likely nothing good. Of course, I could always be completely wrong about Belial or just Bel communicating to the player via the game. Of course, I've always been a big fan of Ghost in the Machine type stories. Beyond this track offers nothing else, within the comments and in the spectrogram. This brings us to track 15. White fog sound effects. This track, or I should say sound effect showcase, is completely different to every track we've seen thus far. This track, or I should say sound effect showcase, is completely different to every piece of media we've seen thus far. As the name implies, it's just a reel showing off 3 different stages of a fog sound effect. Before I explain further, let's look at the description. Note: a step up from normal fog. Replaces music in-game. This is yet another example of a feature that completely changes something in the game. Animal Crossing's happy-go-lucky soundtrack is a staple. It plays at all times during gameplay, with a myriad of different tracks that add to the experience. But apparently there's a new weather that does away with said music entirely. And it's this all-consuming white fog that basically destroys any visibility you may have. On top of the aforementioned removal of any real music in-game, paired with the screenshots and audio, we know this white fog has 3 known stages of intensity. Stage 1 with its fairly light-sounding wind. Stage 2 is much the same. While the third sounds more like a heavy blizzard. With the name of this stage being Hoax, that also means that this weather is common enough for people to have made hoaxes for a secret, scary third phase. This means that either in this world, this version of Animal Crossing was the one that people received, Bell and all, Or it's just that well known on the forum that this was posted on, which we know because of this text at the end of the video, though I doubt this was all contained to one forum. That makes everything we've seen thus far all the more disturbing, especially when you take into account the real world, where Animal Crossing Wild World sold well over 11 million units. One thing I also didn't mention is that in this first phase, you can just barely make out what appears to be a door of some kind leading into what should be the waterfall. With that leads us to the next track in the series, and the longest overall, Nightly Visitor, which is of course named after the titular monster or entity that stalks through this version of the game. While at first, it does very well seem like it would be a regular soundtrack relating to the creature, it instead overlays gameplay of this version of Wild World, cutting off the soundtrack abruptly. Before I go into detail about this and said gameplay, let's look at the description, which gives us the largest amount of text and information about any one thing out of every description we've seen thus far. Note: what is the Nightly Visitor? The Nightly Visitor is essentially the Brutus of Animal Crossing Wild World. A figure rumored to hide in the shadows, taking the form of animals in your town. It is said to visit your town from around 11 p.m. to 4 a.m., roaming near the graveyard. On rare occasions, the Nightly Visitor may enter your house and rearrange furniture in your living room. If the Nightly Visitor catches you, you will receive the highly elusive Game Over screen, but also lose all of your progress. No dialogue in the game has ever been found to even acknowledge its existence, let alone the graveyard it resides in. Despite the rumors, the Nightly Visitor doesn't kill you in real life. This is an urban legend perpetuated by others who are obviously still alive to post about it. Keeping in mind that this text is pulled from the forum along with this video, it makes me think not everyone experiences the paranormal or anomalous parts that we see other players go through. It may be a matter of it happening at different times to different people, and I may have an idea as to why this is. The scariest part, however, is the loss of all of your progress upon being caught. These games can take a bit of time to progress in. I also enjoy how this notes that the Nightly Visitor killing you in real life is just an urban legend. I think series getting meta with themselves in these ways is pretty fun. With that, let's jump back to the overlaid footage, which I again find rather strange. The music just cuts off, no fade out. The image behind doesn't fade out either, and the footage just appears there, almost like it was added after it was uploaded. There's also the potential that this edit was made by Sepiatone, but the villager shown in the primer video doesn't match the one shown here. But as this footage opens, we begin with the player in a bedroom with 2 beds. As they head down the stairs, we also glimpse the inside of a room, one that looks unlike any other that would have any business being inside of a player's house. What's more, is this room also has a passage leading down somewhere. Considering the sound of rushing water, this is likely an entrance to the waterfall dungeon. Later inside of this living room area, we also see 2 things of note. Both pictures. One of Lucky the dog, and one of Belle. These photos can only be obtained after befriending a villager, so we can assume that this player befriended them. Notably, David from Player Graves' favorite villager was Lucky, who appears in the second photo. Judging by the 2 beds, perhaps this other player was David. Of course, with the other name James in mind, it could be them too. Namely, because the letter is addressed to them. We don't currently know of what exactly happened to them, but this ties back into what I said before. Perhaps a prerequisite of being truly targeted by Belle and the Nightly Visitor involves befriending him. Spooky stuff aside, this is an alternate version of Animal Crossing from another world, so all this creepy stuff is more than likely commonplace in the game. There's even a whole forum abuzz with info on these happenings by the sound of it. Personally, I wasn't all too big a fan of church as a kid, and considering Belle may in truth be Belial, the demon, and as most if not all people know, in Christianity and really most religions and cultures, demons aren't exactly looked upon fondly. Considering what I told you about Belial also, we could even say this is their way of corrupting the youth, leading them astray. I can imagine any demon having hate for those who follow religion, specifically Christianity. So we could even say him taking up post as the village priest is both a way to get at the religious youth and older by weeding out the ones who make it a point to get close to them. After all, what religious child or player wouldn't want to get, in their mind, closer to God, even inside of their games? Not only that, his position as priest could have also been taken on to spit in God's face. Even his quote being, "God is such a forgiving being," sounds like him mocking God. Belial is at times depicted as a fallen angel like many demons, so this would make sense. Demons also just don't like God and angels in general, so that also makes sense. David, Noah, and James are also names that hold meaning in the Bible too. By the looks of it, Noah and David are brothers sharing a save file, while James is looking in on the outside, or also sharing the save with the two. And by one of them getting close to Bel, likely David as we see them in church, they doomed each other. Noah quitting only to more than likely have fallen victim to the midnight ceremony and in turn ascension, whatever it may hold. This likely also means James is next in line. I could of course be absolutely insane, but we still have a ways to go. Going back to the video, eventually a phone begins to ring. Noah wanders around the house for a while, searching for the source of the ringing, but strangely the phone in the bedroom isn't the source. As they continue wandering, we begin to hear these odd jingle-like noises. One even seems to have some kind of moan layered behind it. This all comes to a head when we get a notification from Lucky. "Sorry, I can't come to the phone right now." Which should be completely impossible. It's a game. Villagers should always be able to answer the phone, unless something did something to change that. We soon find out as the footage becomes incredibly framey. For the remainder of the video, Noah is pursued by the nightly visitor, the backing track being the remaining nightly visitor track we didn't hear up until now. And eventually, he's caught, and before the video ends, we're shown this text. "I turned around and saw an angel." That's grim. But we have one more video of note in this playlist, and quite the twist. This is yet another video where we hear the uploader speak, where we hear Sepiatone speak. So I'll allow it to play in full now.
Hi, this is an update video on the Animal Crossing videos I've been posting recently, or just in general. This is really hard for me to talk about because the entire thing weirds me out at this point, and I've been trying not to think about it. I never planned on talking about, using my voice to talk about these videos, but I don't want to just, make a community post saying, oh, sorry. I don't want to think about these videos anymore. When I uploaded that nightly visitor video, that wasn't I swear that wasn't the video that I found. I would have freaked out if there was gameplay footage and it looked like that and that stuff happened. That would have been crazy. And then I wake up the next morning and it's that. I would have been too excited to just keep that to myself. I don't know what happened, I swear. I'm not gonna talk about the video. You can just watch the video, you can see it's still there. For some reason, all the videos are still there. I need to talk about the fact that I was like, okay, let me check my videos, right? None of them were there. This collection, I've been building a collection. I've been obsessively cataloging everything I could about this stuff, and it's just not there. So it's okay, my computer messed up, right? I'll just find the videos again. But I can't for the life of me find where I found them. They're just gone. It's all gone. It's it never happened. I look at my search history. It's not, it's I never even searched any of it. Obviously I had to have searched for it because the videos are on my channel. So I'm in general looking for any evidence that this even happened, and all I can see are people talking about the videos I uploaded and nothing before that. And it weirds me out, like, really bad. So I kind of just, for the past week, I've kind of just been trying not to think about it, but I know that I'm gonna keep thinking about it if you guys are gonna, like, think about it. And I don't want to just, like, leave you hanging or anything, so I'm just telling you right now that I guess it's over. I don't know what this is. I don't know what just happened.
This reveals something interesting. Not only is there something paranormal in Animal Crossing Wild World, but its influence even spreads beyond into Sepiatone's computer and YouTube itself. As I noted before, that nightly visitor video was tampered with. Changed. Not by Sepiatone, but by the game, or even Bell themselves. Even this video was changed by Bell, as we briefly hear that same jingle from the nightly visitor at the end of this one. As if Bell is again reaching through the veil to silence Sepiatone. What follows is a video containing the jingle we just heard, and a link to the truth. Here, we find a number of variants of the videos we've seen thus far, and further answers to what we've seen. By far, Player Grave is the one with the most variants, so we'll begin there. The second variant of the Player Grave video presents a different change in David's character's face after that same jingle we heard sounds. Disturbingly, instead of the gyroid face from the original, it's instead swapped out for a crucifix, which is arguably more disturbing in the context of everything. But there may very well be a sort of ordering to these variants. In order to better understand it and the story presented, we need to first look back to the new additions to the playlist. Nightly Visitor sound effects, White Fog sound effects, the Waterfall Dungeon, and Goodbye Note, plus the new one we get with this playlist. Nightly Visitor sound effects. While interesting enough, with some of the sounds we hear here having already appeared in the series at various points, the real treasure trove here is in the description. For the first and last time, Sepiatone breaks character and eventually speaks about what he thinks about everything. This all also helps to clarify much that we've seen, and allow me to get the story just a little bit clearer.
I'd like to break the vague character I've been playing into these descriptions to voice my confusion about this entire thing. These past few months, I've been obsessively scrunging up as much info as I can, and it's only left me more and more confused. There's more than one person behind this stuff. It's an entire community of people doing one big inside joke, and it actually kind of weirds me out how nobody's ever talked about it. I personally thought the Nightly Visitor was some kind of cosmic entity character, but these people kind of just mention it like it was a feature. Like, yeah, there's just a part of the game where you can die. Also, there's an evil monster that kills people. It's not just this one thing either. It makes sense if this was just a weird inside joke that didn't take off, but it's like they're playing an entirely different game. I mean, like, in-depth, pages long, strategy guides on shit like Waterfall Dungeon Level 5, Halloween Furniture Guide, Successful Villager Prayers, How to Escape the Visitor. There's just countless discussions about these features that don't exist, and nobody calls them out. It's really late for me, and I'll probably share more tomorrow when my head's on straight. Thank you for being patient.
It seems by the sounds of it, either Sepiatone stumbled across an alternate reality forum for AC Wild World, or this lone, unnamed, and inaccessible forum that we hear about is the one and only place that people really talk about the Nightly Visitor, Bell, and the other things in this version of the game. I believe the latter is the case, specifically because this playlist was originally meant to be an archive for Sepiatone's Animal Crossing Wild World Let's Play. But either through Bell / the Nightly Visitor becoming aware of him due to likely attracting Bell's attention by poking around the forums and either viewing or downloading videos containing them, all of that original gameplay was replaced. Surprisingly, there's also nothing in the spectrogram this time. Moving on. White Fog sound effects. This replacement forgoes the screenshots and is all around shorter, but more disturbing. The audio is loud, yet you can hear a muffled scream slightly drowned out by the sound of powerful wind. Closer inspection within the spectrogram reveals nothing of note yet again. The description on top of that is also the exact same. Moving on to more meaty content, the next video is titled Waterfall Dungeon. Instead of being an OST, it's presented like a guide to get inside of the waterfall room we saw in Nightly Visitor. It's all framed like some old amateur tutorial from way back then, and it's just that. Live screenshots taken of a DS in a dark room, Windows Movie Maker transitions and editing, it's all there. Through this video, we're shown a step-by-step guide to getting into said room. And wouldn't you know it, that same jingle pops up in the very first step. Though not complex, we watch as the player in the video, someone who appears to be Noah, eventually gains access to the room. Inside now, we can see what almost looks to be a moon-like statue. Notably, the door leading inside of the actual dungeon is also completely sealed, and the creator has no clue how to get in. This is bizarre considering we see it open in Nightly Visitor. Of course, with no mention of it in the tutorial, and the player in this tutorial seemingly being Noah, there's the potential that opening the dungeon released the Nightly Visitor and Belle. Then again, the mention of there being multiple levels to the Waterfall Dungeon, as well as the existence of the church and graveyard, could mean these things were already present. As I also said, there's the potential this forum is one of the few places to have any real documentation of all of these bizarre happenings, considering Belle, or the force behind all of this, his ability to manipulate and change game files within computers, and even things within sites like YouTube. It may even want to keep it that way. Then again, I could always be wrong. I'm just trying to rationalize and put a reason to the rhyme. Next is Goodbye Note. Goodbye Note and Player Grave are the most substantial things we receive here, as they give what I believe is a first-hand account of Ascension. For clarity's sake, along with the second video's description, I'll also reread the first. My brother quit playing the game yesterday and I got this fucked up letter sounding like he was gonna run away. When I asked him about it, he freaked out, insisting he didn't write it. I tried to press him on what happened, and he just started to break down, saying he was going to hell over and over again. I asked for him to draw where the church was on our map. I watched him draw the lines, only to be unable to relocate where it was after I looked away. This video, as you know, is a continuation of the Goodbye Note track we saw prior. Fitting with that, the text in the description also follows the original text up seemingly, and it also lets us in on something quite interesting. Apparently, when asked to point out the church on the map, when Noah looked away, David either outright forgot where the church was on the map, or feigned not knowing where it was. Usually in Animal Crossing games, places of interest are marked on the map. This, meaning the church location, along with the graveyard, wherever it may be, is also unmarked. We know for sure the waterfall room, and by extension, the dungeon, is also a secret. This also confirms that at the time, Noah prior to this had no knowledge of the church, and by extension, maybe everything else. But considering all of these videos were likely posted by the same person on the forum, or Noah as we know them, it's likely after David's ascension, his brother went about documenting as much as he possibly could before likely being taken himself. I feel this can also be linked back to the Waterfall Dungeon, considering things for the most part seem to be somewhat normal, as paying attention to the in-game dates between Waterfall Dungeon and Nightly Visitor's in-game section reveals it's a month plus of in-game time difference. More than enough time for Noah to figure out how to get into the dungeon, potentially release whatever is inside, and allow Belial / the Nightly Visitor to do its thing. Unfortunately, that thing involves helping James, David, and Noah ascend. And it's by piecing together the Player Grave videos we're able to understand what Ascension is. Speaking of Ascension, this video also features a sped-up version of Ascension. The even more frantic audio becomes even more disturbing when you note the dialogue down below. I don't want to go. This means that this likely takes place during the Ascension process. So in order to stop driving you and me both crazy, let's begin the canonical, or I should say most logical beginning to Ascension. It's likely, of course, this all starts with the Midnight Ceremony and leads up to the aptly named Ascension. Of course, both of these videos are simply backing tracks. While recorded in-game, there is no visual to the audio. But, moving on, the true beginning to David's ascension is within this video. For the sake of stopping any confusion, I'll also just label them PG-1 through PG-6 if I do need to mention them. The first video, when you understand it and imagine the context, becomes horribly depressing and disturbing. It's time to go. Please speak into the microphone. David of the three seemed to be the most fanatical. We, of course, also know he's the first to go, and knowing what we've seen in the original player grave, this series of events that we'll see unfolding is the true course of Ascension. The fate that awaits all of those who befriend or even meet Bell. Now, recall David's words. His last words. I don't want to go to heaven. I can only imagine the terror of being confronted by your end. By this ascension. Your final words are all but a plea that falls on deaf ears. But don't worry about him. He's been sent to heaven. I apologize for the jump scare, but it was too good of an opportunity and thing to pass up. This video, I feel, takes place directly after David's final words. His final terrified plea before being made to ascend. This ascension likely meant being dragged into the game itself. Soul stripped from body and seemingly dragged into the game. Into what they were told was heaven. But you can tell by the terror, the frenzied nature of David's words, that this isn't it. These are the pleas and cries of a child, or someone who was caught up in something that they never should have been. As I stated, Bel, Belial, or the nightly visitor likely presented themselves as a priest to get at the religious players. As I said, anyone who follows a religion so closely would likely want to get as close to their god as possible, even in a game. But the outcome was anything but what they wanted. And now that they're there, all they can possibly do is plead and beg for help. Beg not to be left alone. I can imagine the one looking in from the outside is Noah, who can only watch as his brother's soul, trapped within the game, languishes away. And I believe that's exactly what we see in these next two videos. The next in line, I believe, is the one that featured David's face transforming into that of a gyroid's. Now without the strength to plead for his brother's help, his hollowed out eyes and mouth reflect his current mental state. The terror they feel. So much so that they can't even stand to speak. The next variant paints an equally bleak picture. The music again fades out. Instead of his player's face, or even the hollowed out gyroid eyes and mouth, his face is replaced with a cross, a crucifix. The audio is now completely quiet. Left alone with my own thoughts as I watched this, I tried to imagine what this ascension was, where his soul went. I thought back to texts we saw prior. It's too bright in here. It's so lonely up here. A desolate, right place that I can't quite put into words is all that comes to mind. But if we move on to the next video and skip ahead to where we meet David again, his face is once more across. Only now there's a light static noise in the background, almost like wind. For a final time, we get to see David speak, seemingly to Noah.
You're in hell. You all are. It's an angel. He told me I was in hell. You're lying. Nobody remembers me. Don't cry. Hell will forget you too.
Capping all of this off is the end of David. Resigned to his fate, he's given in to this heaven he was brought to. The final player grave video presents the same expansive shot of a cloud-filled sky we saw at the very end of the last video. The entirety of this video is much of the same. The difference being we also receive a new version of the church prayer track. One that slowly fades out, only for us to be met with this gurgling cry or groan that in all seriousness really disturbed me. Considering what we know now, I believe what comes after this chronologically could be Nightly Visitor, followed by both installments of Goodbye Note. It would make sense considering Noah, after likely seeing firsthand what his brother was put through, and also being caught by Bell or the Nightly Visitor, he quit the game. While his character, now compromised by the Nightly Visitor, likely sent the letter to James. Realistically, a child, if we're even watching one through the story, wouldn't write anything so thought out and grim. But from there, Noah is likely taken just like David, another spirit in the room. This would again make sense considering the final video is another version of Player Grave that's unnamed, presenting a completely different image of the sky and yet another alternate version of church prayer. And that brings us to the end of all the truly apparent content within the series. I was honestly a bit disappointed we didn't find anything interesting inside of the spectrogram, and believe me, I've looked through every track once or twice, and combed through said audio, even when I was more or less sure there was nothing there whatsoever. As for the whispering, I still haven't figured out what exactly it holds, if anything. But for now, let's go back in and try to piece everything together, and explain some things a bit deeper if I can help it. This story at its core is what I'd label religious horror. It's no secret that there's no end to the religious imagery and subtext in the series. Just look at the church tracks. Bel or Belial the Ram priest who mocks God, and the entire church series of tracks inside of the playlist, not to mention the crucifix hung up in David and Noah's and potentially James's house. If you want to look a bit deeper, there's also Noah, David, and James's name, all of which are important to Christianity in some way. Noah of Noah's Ark, who of course built the Ark. David, the second king of Israel. And James, who, well noted as sharing this name with multiple characters in the Bible, had its most notable use as James the Just, the brother of Jesus himself. This all of course points to the family these three come from being religious. Of course, these names are still quite common, but I can't think of a reason why non-religious kids would go so far as to place a cross inside of their in-game house, let alone pursue Bell so much to actually befriend them in the context of the game, as we see his picture in their home. This is all tied neatly together when you think of how constricting some religions, and especially religious households, can be. One's desire, especially a child's in their mind, grow closer to their God and avoid this horrible place called hell that they're told they're going to go to when they die if they don't follow their God's teachings, is all the reasoning they would need in order to want to get as close to a religious figure as possible, even in a game like Animal Crossing Wild World. Imagine that same child's horror when they're also told by this religious figure, this priest, that they're really in hell. That if they ascend, they'll go to heaven. A place almost always depicted as being free of strife, struggle, worry, and pain. But something's wrong. This isn't right. This is scary. It feels wrong. Why can't you feel your body? Why is it so bright? Where is everyone? But it's too late. You're in this mockery of heaven. This lie. You're staring straight back at your brother through the screen, and you can't help but scream. It comes out as little more than a mechanical garble, while frantic text flashes on the screen below. And that's the end. You can only sit and languish away in heaven. That's the horrifying part. The religious part. Then there's Bell and the Nightly Visitor, and what exactly they are. I like to think they are the demon Belial. It fits quite well with the religious imagery, especially with them being a black goat and seemingly mocking God in their picture quote. Then there's a Nightly Visitor, who may very well be Bell in a different form. Note the quote from Midnight Ceremony. But there's always potential for Belle and the Nightly Visitor to be something completely different altogether. The only issue is the what. And that's what I can't quite think of. So for the time being, we'll leave it at that. More so for convenience sake, and well, me just really liking the idea I presented. There are also some things I couldn't quite pin down, like James's identity for one, or the fate of the villagers, which more than likely wasn't good. But overall, I feel I've at the very least found and dove into most stuff, if not everything I possibly could have. This series overall was amazing. Honestly, I might go dredging through Sepiatone's other creations to see if there's anything else of note for a future video on the channel. Speaking of videos, I'd just like to apologize for how slow uploads have been. Between work, my own life, and slight burnout, I'm just now finally getting back into the swing of things. With that, I'd just like to personally thank Sepiatone and Fabi Saturn for allowing me to use their music in future content and for recommending me the series respectively. As is the norm, I ask that you do like, comment, and subscribe. Every little bit helps me and lets me know whether or not I'm doing good. I'm Dregobob, hoping you're having a wonderful day or night wherever you are. Bye-bye. Mommy! Satan is here! Oh my god, it's in my Animal Crossing village! No!